Here we go. Chapter 11. Chapter 11. Tactics, strategies, and special situations, where this is kind of rolling a bunch of stuff in together. Bless you. There's an old, ancient warrior philosopher named Sun Tzu. He says, "Hence to fight and conquer in all your battles is not the supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting." Breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. And that's what we want to do. We want to get people to see the same picture the same way without ordering them or causing them to get angry and battle and fight each other. Another general, of course, you notice I refer to a lot about generals here because one of my proteges, who actually, a guy named Bob Good, who taught me to be a good mediator, he was a helicopter pilot in the Vietnam War. And he said it was a mediation every day. It was a mediation to mediate with the helicopter to get the helicopter up off the ground. It was a mediation with the enemy to make sure that they didn't shoot his ship down and all this stuff. But anyway, he's taught me a lot of these. He relates everything back to what generals, because to be a good general, then you had to have good people skills. Now, even though it doesn't appear to, they may not appear to have good people skills on the surface, they have the ability to direct people down the path they want them to go. Now, obviously, General Patton is, he got in trouble for slapping a soldier that, he probably shouldn't have slapped. But, Patton says that war was the greatest of all human endeavors. And he defined it that way not to glorify war, but to remind us that it required all of our management skills and all of our courage and fortitude to successfully and efficiently bring it to an end. And so if you think about these conflicts that people are having, if you think about the issues that they're having, we're going to use all of our skills, all of our abilities to bring this conflict to an end. Okay? And, Patton goes on to talk about the horrors of war as well. And when he's talking about the horrors of war, he's not doing it, once again, not to glorify it or talk about how wonderful war is, but he's talking about it so that people don't want to go to war, so that people will avoid it. And so many times as mediators, what we need to do is to go back into the past a little bit and talk about what are some of the things that brought them to this point so that we don't repeat those things in the future, so that we can get them off of those negative points and so that we don't repeat history. Okay, so you need to be cognizant of history so that you don't repeat it. In mediation, as in any business or any endeavor, strategies and tactics are devised to enable the participants to experience a successful outcome. I mean, that's why you're all here today. Basically, in almost, as I said the first day, in almost every state, you don't have to be, quote, a certified mediator to go out there and mediate. You can step out the door, hang a shingle, and say, I'm a mediator. Now, you may not be able to do court-appointed mediations. You may not be able to do any mediations that are affiliated with the court system, but that won't prevent you from doing, mediations with the government or mediations with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission or employment mediations or any types of mediations with any company, because you're a mediator. You're saying you're a mediator, so how can anybody challenge you? I mean, you're a mediator. The reason that you're here is so that you can learn some of the skills, some of the things that first of all, that you're going to be facing, some of the challenges that you're going to face as mediators, and how you can overcome some of those things. So you're here, most of you of your own free will, and I don't think we have anybody chained to the table, but you're here of your own free will in order to learn the things that are going to make you a more successful mediator. Another 20th century theoretical strategist, Captain Hart, he says the strategy contains 8 fundamental truths or maxims. 8 fundamental truths or maxims. 6 of these were positive and 2 of them were negative. But all 8 of these maxims we can use as mediators to strategize about how to resolve conflict. The first one is adjust your end to your means. Adjust your end to your means. It means a mediator may not be able to help the parties reach a resolution 100% of the time, but that doesn't mean that we can't have partial agreements, that we can't have partial settlements. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. If someone has 6 issues and you're helping to resolve one, that's one thing that you've helped them resolve that they don't have to address later on. And just because you've got 5 issues and you've settled 4 of them, that doesn't mean it's an unsuccessful mediation. Now it's just more likely that they're going to get that one other issue resolved at some later date, and hopefully before it goes to trial or other actions take place. So partial successes are successes. By the mere fact that you've gotten them to the table to talk about it is a success. Okay? The second axiom, always keep your objective in mind. Always keep your objective in mind. Now, as the mediator's objective is to facilitate the flow of information. So all of those things about controlling the rules and being the rules police and not letting people overtalk each other and interrupt each other, all of those things about you not focusing on the mediation, all of those things that are distractions that are going to prevent you from being a good mediator and keeping you focused and keeping your objective in mind. And your objective is to help these people reach a resolution of their own making. Your objective is to help these people reach a resolution of their own making. The mediator should not allow the parties to become embroiled in destructive issues. Okay? The mediator should not allow the parties to become involved in destructive issues. And by that I mean, don't let the parties continually, blatantly degrade or talk down to to the other side. You may not even realize it's happening when it's happening, but at some point you're going to notice that it's happening, and then you may need to take a break and take a break and go into caucus. I always start off the caucuses by, once I get them in there and go over the caucus rule about everything we say here will remain confidential unless you allow us to share it with the other side, is, how do you think the mediation's going? Well, it's going pretty good. I'm really telling them how I feel. Okay, well, do we really know how they're taking that? Or how do you think that they're taking what you're continually calling them? Well, I really don't care because I really want to let them know how I feel. Well, if someone, this is turning it around and putting yourself into their shoes, and ask them, well, if they constantly called you those names, or if they constantly accused you of this, how would it make you feel? Well, it wouldn't make me feel anyway because it's not true. Okay, well, let's just think about it for just a second. Is everything factual that you're talking about in there? Are these the facts? Is this everything that you're saying? Is that truthful? Well, maybe I've exaggerated a little bit. Okay, well, how would it make you feel? Okay, and then we go back in, and of course I caucus with this side for a couple of minutes, and we move on back in. But don't let one of the parties, just constantly attack, through thought or words or emotions. The mediator's primary job is to get the people to talk. Yes, ma'am.
If someone is attacking the other one, do you make the other one apologize to them?
No. I've never made somebody apologize because we can't make anybody apologize. I mean, we're just mediators. We have no power. But some people have come back from break or come back from and apologized to the other side, because when I asked them those questions about how would it make you feel if they were saying those things to you, then they really stop and think about it. And sometimes they will go and tell the other side that, I apologize for calling you those things and let's move on. Okay? Sometimes they will. Yeah, but you as the mediator shouldn't suggest or tell people that they ought to do that, because it's going to come back. It's not going to come across as that you're being If I was to tell you that, well, you need to go in there and apologize to them because you're just a bad person, or you were just wrong with what it was that you did, then they're going to feel like that you're taking sides. Okay? But if I'm asking you to think about the things that you've said and how would that make you feel, you know, and if they even hint that they say, well, why are you asking me that? Are you taking their side? I said, no, my responsibility here is to help y'all resolve these issues. And so how are you going to resolve these issues if you're not giving them an opportunity to speak, but to constantly have to try to defend themselves? Okay? And so you do that by taking a little bit of time and having some patience and walking them through it. Yeah, good question. Like I said, the mediator's primary job or responsibility is to keep the people focused on the task. Okay? And the focus of the task to try to get this resolved. You want to choose the course, this is the third axiom, choose the course of least expectation. Well, choose the course of least expectation. By that, one of the parties in the mediation is probably there with a lesser degree of commitment to resolve these issues. Well, you know what? Both of them are probably there with the intent that this is just a big waste of time. As a matter of fact, many times, as soon as you walk in there, in their opening statements, the parties are going to say, I really don't know why we're here. I haven't done anything wrong, and this is just a big waste of time. I'm going to see them in court. Okay? And lots of times my co-mediators will say, man, that was quick. They'll say, now they won't say it right then because, the mediation hasn't ended. And so then I say, well, let's just go ahead and just give your opening statements and tell us why we're here. Not why you think that we shouldn't be here. Why do you think we're here? Okay? And they give their opening statements, and then, a couple hours later we got this resolved, and my co-mediator saying, man, I never thought in a million years we were going to get this resolved, because they both said up front that they didn't want to be here. They were only there because their lawyers told them to be there, or the court ordered them to mediation, and they certainly didn't show up there with the intent to get this resolved. When we're talking about going down the course of least expectation, many times they're not expecting you to talk about what's going to happen if we don't get this resolved. What's going to happen if we don't get this resolved? Well, it's going to go to court. Okay, well, what are your expectations if this goes to court? What do you think is going to happen? Well, I'm going to get to go up there and talk, tell my story to the judge. Well, what makes you think that that's what's going to happen? That's when hopefully you've got a lawyer in the room who can say, you can turn to the lawyer and say, tell us what's going to happen if this goes to court. Tell us what we can expect. Okay? The fourth axiom is exploit the line of least resistance. Exploit the line of least resistance. And basically what that means is the line of least resistance is going to be the area that you can focus on, that you think based upon your short time with these parties that you can get the people to agree upon. Okay? Something that they shouldn't be in disagreement about. Something that ought to be very easy to resolve or to direct. Sometimes this is going to be one of those issues that's a hidden agenda, but you'll just have to get that out through asking them questions and listening to their opening statement. Also, the area of the least resistance could be something that is their weakness, is something that they haven't even thought about, something that wasn't even going to be surfaced. And because you don't know these people, you don't know their strengths and weaknesses. And so just by asking normal open-ended questions, you may hit across something that they never thought in a million years you'd ask about because you don't know them. The fifth axiom is take a line of operation which offers alternative objectives. Take a line of operation which offers alternative objectives. The last thing a mediator wants to see happen is a total impasse. Okay? Well, there are times when you feel like that, okay, we're not moving any, I can't think of a question to ask, we're in total impasse, and so maybe I may mention that in the mediation. I may just say, well, now that's after I've waited my 10 to 12 seconds after just staring at somebody and they didn't answer anything and I can't think of anything to ask, and so I say, well, gosh, it looks like we're in an impasse. And then I'll go back to the very beginning and I'll say, what was it we were trying to accomplish here today? Well, I was trying to get them to do X. And they say, well, I was trying to get them to do Y. Okay, well, if we could get them to do X, how would you get them to do it? And so there's ways to get off of impasse. There's ways to get off of that point by just turning it back and starting over again if you have to. Bringing it back, to, why are we here? Another way I get off of an impasse is doing this alternative objectives is, how did y'all meet in the beginning? What started your relationship? Whether it's an employment relationship, whether it's a vendor-contractor, go back to that point. Go back to the beginning of however they chose each other to work with or live with, or whatever their relationship is, whatever that dynamic is. The sixth axiom is to ensure that both plan and dispositions are flexible and adaptable to the circumstances. One of the keys to success as a mediator is being flexible, and I really hate using this term because it's really overused, but to think outside the box, to think about, not just not staying within the lines and thinking about what probably might be considered a tried and true resolution. Think about something that maybe hasn't been tried before, and you can ask the parties, you can ask them, well, what is it that you think will resolve this, that you've been afraid to put out on the table because you weren't sure how it would be received? And I'll ask both sides that, because now I'm giving them the permission to talk about something that is outside the box, something that they've been afraid to talk about because they thought it sounded silly or stupid. But you know what? It may be the thing that'll resolve the issue. So many times in these settlements that we have, if you weren't there during the process, and then you read these agreements later, you're wondering, man, that sounds like a really strange resolution, Well, that resolution worked for those parties. That resolution was a resolution of their making, and it fits them. It allows them to resolve their conflict, and it allows them to be flexible. The seventh one, and this one's pretty interesting. It says, do not throw your weight into a stroke while your opponent is on guard, while he is well placed to parry or evade it. Now, basically, what they're saying is, and if you can imagine a sword fight, don't throw your strongest blow when they've got their shield up and they're ready to defend it. In baseball, many times you see the batteries up there. The count's 3-0, and he's going to take his best shot at whatever that next pitch is coming across the plate, and he's going to swing so hard it's going to spin him around, and he's going to lose his balance and fall. Well, don't throw your best shot at their best defense. The mediator would not want to be responsible for causing the session to fail because a party felt that they were being coerced into a settlement. So consider the party's feelings. Consider how, whatever it is, the best shot that you're taking, think about how it's going to be received by the other side. Think about how they're going to perceive that. Okay? And by that I mean, here's what happens. Most mediators, they want to use this term. Well, what will resolve this complaint for you? That's a great term to use, but you don't want to use it 2 minutes into the mediation, because we don't even know what it is that they're trying to resolve. But so many times I'll have a co-mediator that'll say, well, what do you want to resolve this case? Okay? They just cut to the chase. They eliminate all the opportunity for ventilation. They eliminate all the opportunity to really find out what the true issue is here. But they jump, and that's a good strong blow to use. That's like using that in baseball terminology. You're using it when for your first pitch. The count's 0-0, no balls, no strikes, and you're throwing that out there. Well, you may not even need to use it. Yet you're throwing it out there and taking your best shot without even hearing any of the specifics or any of the other details of what's going on. I would probably say that I don't even use that in probably 5 or 10% of the mediations I do, because the people tell you. If you just listen to them and give them an opportunity, they'll tell you what will resolve this conflict for them without you having to throw that out there. And the eighth one, the eighth axiom, is do not renew an attack along the same line or in the same form in the same mediation if it's failed once. Okay? You need to change your strategy or change your tactic or change your questions. Okay? Okay, so those are the 8 axioms. We have, let's talk about impasse. You know, when you get to an impasse, that doesn't mean that the mediation's over. The mediation just may be getting started. You know, the definition of an impasse is the inability to make progress toward an agreement, or the inability to resolve the issues. So that doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that you're at a place that you either can't think of a question to ask, or the parties are exhausted, or the parties are being stubborn, or for whatever reason, everybody stopped talking. And pretty much when everybody stops talking, that's when you're at an impasse. You also have to understand that don't worry about if these people refuse to talk to each other in the beginning. The whole reason you're probably there to start with is because they've had an impasse in their communication somewhere along the line in the past. That's the whole reason that the mediator's even involved. This typically happens in the beginning of the mediation, like I said earlier, is that the parties will say, well, I don't even know why I'm here. You know, this is a big waste of time. Well, why do you think you're here? Well, I don't know why I'm here. Well, so if what I'm hearing you say is that you don't have any problems, is that, well, no, the whole problem is that he won't do what he says he's going to do. I said, oh, okay, well, what is it that he says that he won't do? And that takes you right down a whole other line of questioning. Okay? So when people say that they don't know why they're here, you know, ask them. Ask them to bring it up. Ask them to talk about it. It's usually characterized, impasses are typically characterized by a repetition of positions and the feeling of frustration. Well, if you observe that, if you see that and you feel like they're being frustrated, ask them, you know. And you may not even have to go to caucus to do this. You may just look at them and say, well, you know, I see a confused look on your face. What is that about? You know, because I may want to do that for the benefit of the other side sitting there. But remember, if you control your tone, if your tone of your voice seems empathetic, you can get away with asking just about anything. Okay? And remember, I use caucus strictly as a tool, not as a methodology. So I'm more inclined to ask people questions in front of the other party than most mediators would, because I want the effect to go to the other side, not to me, because their response to me is really pretty irrelevant. When a mediation has reached an impasse, take the time to work through it. Don't just give up. Ask them why it is they can't, what is it that they're hung up on? What is it that, what position is it that they'd like to see changed? If they say, well, I don't know, well, then take that question and turn it back around on them. Well, what are the things that got us here? What are the issues that are in dispute? Well, the issues in dispute are A, B, C, whatever they are. Then just pick one of them that you either may or may not have talked about and focus on that A and say, okay, well, let's talk about A then. And go down that path. It's easy to get people off of impasse. You just have to think about it. It's just something that's going to come with practice. The next one is a motivation for parties to get past the impasse may be their relationship. Now, this is almost always where I'm going to head. The path that I'm going to head down is to focus on the future relationship. Okay? And there's been very